r/NoSleep. Posted by u/_gh0st_. Does anyone know what could be haunting me? Part 1. It started about 2 months ago, when I was walking my dog and I happened to see a garage sale. It was one of my elderly neighbors who lived a few streets over from me. She was super friendly and had this gorgeous antique mirror. Me and my wife, Lily, had been looking for something just like it. It was in pretty good condition and she was selling it for only $10. Now I know why she was so keen to get rid of it. Well anyway, I put up the mirror and it did look amazing in our dining room. It stood grandly above the table, and really opened up the room. Lily and I were very pleased with it, but then everything turned south. I very first noticed her after roughly a week? Maybe 10 days, I'm not sure. But I was setting the table, ready for dinner, when behind me on my left side, I saw a small brown/black haired head pop up and scurry past and shoot into the curtains. I felt her brush past me too. I smiled, thinking it was my youngest daughter, Molly, and said, I wonder who that could be. And sorta jumped and turned, pulling back the curtain. No sweet giggle, or a gap-toothed grin met me. No one was there. Lily came in, and I asked her where Molly was. She was in the front room watching Bluey, her favorite show about these Australian dogs, and hadn't moved. When I told her about what I saw, she laughed, and playfully saying I was going mad. I brushed it off, I was just tired. However, I saw this girl again. I've observed her to have waist-length dark hair, and a blue dress on. She has no shoes though. This time, she was peeping from behind the curtains. I caught her out the corner of my eye. When I turned around she was gone, but the mirror told a different story. The moment I saw her, my blood ran cold. My eldest children, my son and daughter, Eric and Madison, were in the room this time with me, but hadn't spotted her. I hurried them out, saying I was bored of homework and we should watch a film. So I sent them to make some popcorn and pick a film while I cleaned up. But really, I just wanted them out of the room. The girl was looking right at them, grinning, in a weird way I really didn't like. I locked the dining room door and didn't go near it until Lily returned with Molly. During this time I swear to God I heard banging and knocking from inside the dining room, but I just turned up the TV and prayed my kids didn't hear it. When Lily and Molly returned from a birthday party, they were tired out. I didn't mention the little girl to Lily. I didn't want to seem crazy, and she wasn't really dangerous. This went on for about a month. I kept catching glimpses of her hiding under the table, behind a chair, but her favorite spot was the curtain. I never saw more of her face than her eyes though. The spookiest one was when I was eating dinner, and I could feel her stood behind me, breathing down my neck. I lost my appetite very quickly, as you can imagine, and ushered everyone out to eat in front of the TV. I get very uneasy when thinking about her. I mentioned her twice again to Lily, but she took it as a lame attempt to scare her. Until one day I received a call whilst I was at work. "Okay, Mr. Smartass, how the hell did you pull it off?" "Honey, what do you mean?" I inquired. "I mean the little girl in the mirror. It gave me quite a fright, but yes, very clever." "What is it? A screen? Or an overlay or something?" I remember my heart skipping a beat, and suddenly feeling lightheaded. I said in a dark, serious tone, "Lily, I'm being serious. You get out of that room, and lock the door. Now. I'm coming home." She was quiet for a moment and then replied, "Nick, this isn't funny anymore." "Lily, I'm not joking. Get out of that room." "Look, I get that you might think this is foo, Nick, it's moved." "Why the hell has it moved?" I could hear the panic rising in her voice. I stood up, closed my laptop and ran. "Lock the door, just get out and lock it, Lils." Okay. Oh my God, something just touched me. What the foo?" I could hear her moving about and then a scream. I called her name. I was in the car by now, furiously driving back. All could hear was scrambling. "Hurry back please, I don't know what to do." She was on the verge of tears. I could hear it in her voice. She was out the room, and sat on the stairs, the dining room door to the right of them. It was quiet for a moment, then. Tap. 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 Tap 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 tap. Nick, hurry, something's knocking on the door." Nick. I could hear an angry banging by now. I stepped on the gas, and was home minutes later. Lily was outside already. I ran to her and hugged her close whilst she sobbed on my shoulder. I comforted her, and took her slowly back to the house. But as soon as we stepped into the house, bang bang bang, the door was shaking, the doorknob rattling. I thought it was going to come off its hinges. Lily screamed, jumping back, covering her eyes. I banged back on the door. "Shut up," I yelled from the other side. Leave us alone. And all fell quiet. We didn't go in there for a week. Anytime we did, something bad happened. I went in to get my laptop, something ripped it out my hands, sending it flying into the wall, smashing to bits. She was laughing at me in the mirror. Lily was vacuuming in there and a vase fell off, smashing on her foot and cutting it pretty bad. We didn't let the kids in there, but Eric came out one day, after sneaking in, with 3 huge scratches down his back and crying his eyes out. This was the final straw. Nothing hurts my kids. We figured it was the mirror, seemingly as it was only in that room and in that mirror we saw her, and it started when we got it. So I grabbed my bat, and shouted at her trying to scare her off. She was laughing behind the curtain. She seemed a lot happier recently. You can stay and laugh, and even break my shit, but don't you dare hurt my kids. You leave us alone. Now. Her face twisted in ways a child shouldn't. She was angry, her brow was furrowed, and be honest, I'm glad I couldn't see the rest of her face. She shrunk back behind the curtain. I turned to look at the curtain, to see if she was really gone, but a wave of fear washed over me as I did so. Then my head split in an excruciating agony and I yelled out. Warm blood trickled down my face. In a panic I looked in the mirror. She was there, stood on the table, clawing at me. The lights were going nuts, and everything was ice cold. I swung my bat, making contact with the mirror, and it shattered into pieces. I kept swinging, over and over until I calmed down a bit. I couldn't feel her anymore. But one thing that worried me was in the back of the frame. It says, "Thank you," in a dried brown substance I'm really hoping is paint. This happened about an hour ago. She's really messed up my face and chest. I'm covered in cuts, but it's been quiet so far. I'm going to try and talk to the old woman I bought this off, but I just can't shake the feeling she's not really gone. I'll update when I see the old woman, and if anything else happens, but could anyone give me any advice if she comes back, or any pointers on what she might be? Thanks, Nick. Posted by u/_gh0st_. Does anyone know what could be haunting me? Update. Smashing the mirror was a very, very, very bad idea. After the events of the other night, I went to speak to the old woman who originally sold me the mirror. I walked my dog again, round to her house and knocked on the door. I must have been there for 10 minutes just knocking until one of her neighbors came out wielding a watering can. Are you looking for Maria? The man with a small mustache asked. Yes. Do you know when she will be back? No. In watering her plants he gestured to the watering can. She sadly took a nasty fall and broke her hip last week. She's at, not saying name for privacy reasons, hospital if you want to visit her, thank you. I ran home, put my dog back in the house and drove to the hospital. I had no idea what I was actually going to say. Hi, I bought a mirror off you and now my life's a living hell. I asked for her room, and walked up to it. I waited outside the door for a second, hesitant to go in. It felt so wrong, but I really was desperate. The room was small, plain and smelt chemical. In the bed, was a small, frail frame of Maria. She turned to me, with a confused look on her face. Are you a doctor? She asked. She sounded even weaker than when I had spoken to her before. No, not exactly. Well, I bought a mirror of you, and her face dropped. I'm so sorry. She shook her head, and played with the thin hospital sheets. I walked over, and took the seat by her bed. Look, that was never supposed to be out for sale, my son. She shook her head again. I told him everything in the attic was to go. I forgot that the mirror was there. I swear I'd never put the burden of Adeline on another person. Adeline? I asked. She smiled softly. Yes, my late husband Arthur. He brought the mirror home one day. And then she begun to appear. I'm sure you know the story. I nodded, as I saw her looking at my partly healed scratches. Well, Arthur put her in the attic, and that's where she stayed, until one day, oh God, I cracked the mirror. She got out. And Arthur, he thought he saw little Ginny, our granddaughter, in the river by our house. He said he saw her little blonde hair under the current. She teared up, wiping her eyes trying to keep it together. I reached out, squeezing her hand. She gave me a warm smile. He jumped in after Ginny, to save her. But he never came out. She was crying. By now the memory of poor old Arthur was making my own eyes prick. It was the reflection of Adeline. Ginny was in the house the whole time. She shook her head silently. I got it fixed, and didn't go in the attic ever again. My advice to you, is lock it up. Don't risk her getting out. The crack was enough for her to slip through. God knows what would happen if it broke. My heart dropped to the floor. I felt my face pale. She saw it too. What happened? She looked worried. I just stared at her. She knew. Run. Get out of there now. Move as far away as you can. She paused, and her eyes went wide. Her face fell, and she started to cry again. I'm sorry, it's too late. She's here. I looked around frantically. I could hear her laughing at me. So I ran. I ran out of there, not looking back until I reached my car. I just sat in the parking lot for a bit, thinking it over, soaking in the information I had just received. Defeated, I returned home and I just sort of tried to continue on. Maybe the old woman was wrong. But I begun to notice little things again. I was doing the washing up after dinner that following evening, and when I turned around, all the pots I had put away were back out on the side. The TV turned on at stupid times in the early morning, and she is still in the mirrors. Except she's everywhere now. She's in my closet peeking out. In the reflections on my car. I've realized she's following me now. Last time she got destructive only when we acknowledged her and feared her. So, I tried my best to ignore her. We can't afford to move again, and I really don't want to have to, so I tried to put up with her. She followed me to work, knocking my coffee over my lap, shredding my freshly printed documents and turning off my computer. She almost got me fired, by hiding my notes and sending paper up the table while my boss spoke. She's there in the reflections of the fridges in the local supermarket, throwing tins across the store, laughing in my ear as she does so. The worst thing is, Lily can't even see her. She thinks she's gone. Adeline knows what she's doing. She's using them to hurt me. I see her around, leaning over my son, reaching out to my girls. Her hair covers her face, but I can still see her sick little grin underneath. She copies Molly's laugh. She laughs into the night, thudding around. She bangs on the walls. She scratches and bites me when I do manage to sleep, and hides my things. She's pushing me to my limit. Last night, we were watching TV, when I saw her running back and forth behind me from the vase. I kept seeing her pausing, waiting for me to react. The TV switched off with a click. I rolled my eyes and leaned for the remote. I was getting used to her crap, when Lily sort of yelped. I spun round. She had a tiny gash on her cheek. Her blonde hair was down over her face, eyes wide with fear staring over my shoulder. She looked so small and weak. I'll never forget that look, as it's the last thing I'll ever see of her. The vase came flying through the air, smashing full force into her, knocking her down. I knew I had to leave. I pulled Lily up, she was unconscious but breathing, and rested her on the sofa. There was crimson everywhere, her soft hair dyed red. I desperately called 911, whilst the lights flickered, and doors slammed. Mom? Dad? I heard Madison coming downstairs. Maddie, please go back upstairs. Lock you and your siblings' doors, please. I tried to keep the fear out of my voice. I was trying not to cry. Dad? What's going on? She called. Her voice was wavering. I love you, sweetheart, okay? Please just go. I heard her retreat. I grabbed my phone. It wasn't working. I was smearing blood over the screen, when it cracked in my hands and went black. I jumped up. The neighbors could help me. As I stood up, glass began to rain down on me. Every mirror, window, ornament exploded around me, and I yelled out. I heard the kids crying and screaming upstairs. At the top of them, I thought was Molly, and I was almost crushed with fear as I bolted up to get her. But it wasn't Molly. The kids' rooms were wide open, and she was stood there laughing. I didn't want to see what she had done. I got a sinking feeling, and just knew. The girl who's been haunting me has long black hair and a pale blue dress. Her eyes are black, her face is cracked like a porcelain doll's, she has an evil little grin that's too large for any face, and she is trying to kill me. I left, driving as fast as I could. She wants me, not them, I told myself. I banged on the neighbor's door, screaming at them to call the police, and then I left. I was on the news, you probably saw me, caught on my neighbor's doorbell camera, covered in blood and hysteric, crying and shaking. They really think I did that to my wife? They think I did that to my family? I should have protected them. I should have left sooner. The photo they used was of us on our holiday to Spain. My children smiling joyously, eyes sparkling, faces smeared with ice cream I had treated them to. Lily hugging them together, she was looking up at me, love in her eyes. Behind the camera was me, soaking up the beautiful moment together. It was my favorite picture. I pulled out the mini one of that same picture that I keep in my wallet. On the back is a heart Lily drew with a matching I love you. I would give anything to go back to that moment. We were all so happy. I clutched that picture and sobbed. I'm on the side of the motorway, typing this on my work computer. I just want someone out there to know I'm innocent before I get dragged away and put in prison. But she's still here, laughing at me in the back seat, with her evil little grin, and blood-stained dress, taunting me with Molly's laugh.